Halito and welcome back everybody. This is CT over at the NYC Indian, and today we're going to be reviewing Married at First Sight. It's not a sure thing. This is going to be coming to you from an urban Native American Indian perspective, a mixed perspective, and a secular perspective. So let's dive right on in. It's the next morning with Lindsay and Mark, and she's really happy. It looks like they consummated their marriage. She wouldn't say exactly, but I mean, her face was like beet red, right? She's probably, I'm pretty sure they did. And Mark wants to sit down and talk to her about yesterday's, what happened with Elijah Wan. Now, I have a little bit more context to this particular review that I'm doing today because last week I didn't see the after party until later. So, after seeing Elijah Wan's side and the way he said that Lindsay was making fun of his slippers and kind of she was being too much, and even the flight attendants had to ask her to, put her mask back on. It sounded like she was being completely obnoxious. So, and then, crying about it and stuff like that later. I mean, I was thinking that, okay, in the beginning, maybe, yeah, she's just a lot, but maybe, once they get into a regular setting and there's not as much drinking and stuff like that. But, when she sat down with Mark basically said, you had 3 bottles of wine. And I was like, 3 bottles of wine, that's too much. And that's too much too soon. So I didn't want to be on the it's never going to work train with everybody else, like they said about Mark and Lindsay, but this is looking a little bit like a train wreck. So anyway, she sent a DM. She DM'd Elijah Wan on his Instagram to apologize, but he's basically not hearing it. I think the whole crying bit, I mean, that was a bit much if, hey, you were the one that started things and stuff like that. I mean, listen, he's not my favorite person either, but, if you don't like somebody, you just stay away from him or whatever. But maybe that wasn't the case with her. Maybe it wasn't that she didn't like him. It's just that she, wanted to, I don't know, be cute in front of the camera or something like that. It was just too much. So now Mark is, I'm surprised he's saying something so soon, but he seemed like he is just ready to let her know, because during the after party episode, he said that when Keisha was asking him, like, about the situation, he said that he told her that it's something that he couldn't stand in the marriage, like he wouldn't stay with her if she continued to behave that way. So it must have been really, really bad. Now, I still feel like, and I don't care what anybody says, I still feel like in public, he probably should have just like, I mean, I don't know, because if I'm wrong, I still want my partner to, in public, to act like you got my back, but behind closed doors, then you can say, hey, listen, you really messed up. So I still don't really like that part about it, but the bottom line was, I mean, she was just wrong. I mean, what are you gonna say? She's too much. I mean, she was just wrong. So now we wake up to Mike and Jasmina, and he's trying to make her coffee, and she's just like not feeling it, okay? And they start discussing what happened the previous day, and he says that he has been noticing a distance between them, and he knows that he's not the most talkative person, and she's just, trying to get him to understand that you don't have to always think of the worst all the time. And he goes later on into the episode about why he feels that way, his background, and all of the deaths that he's experienced in his immediate family has affected his, sort of always bracing for the worst sort of trait that he has, whatever. So Jasmina, though, she's, I think if she is attracted to him, that is something that could be worked on. That's not the worst personality trait in a person, right? But I'm, we don't, there's so many things that happen off camera. So I think that she's not only just feeling that way only based off the conversation that she had with his sisters. I think there are other things that she's seen in him, and I'm wondering if it's just been a whole bunch of things, or if it's just been like 2 or 3 little things that are just enough for her to be like, no, 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 no. So yeah, we have to see about that. Hopefully it's something that they can kind of work out, but I don't know. We still need to get to the finances. I need to know a little bit more about his finances. So now we have Mark and Lindsay, and they are taking some kind of bartending class or something. I don't even know why, because have we not had enough alcohol in this situation for a 24-hour period? I don't know. So later on, they decide to sit down at a table and they talk about their previous relationships. And Mark then reveals that, oh my God, his very first love, well, she drank too much in the relationship and fell out of love with him. I'm like, oh my God. And they hook him up with Lindsay, who can finish off 3 bottles of wine the previous day. Listen, this is too much. I was rooting for them, but I don't know anymore. I think this is not a good match. So now we have Steve and Noye, and Noye is like kind of silently gushing over Steve. She's really into him. I mean, really into him. It's nice sometimes to see, you know, couples that have that really good chemistry, and he seems to be physically, you know, very much into her as well. But then she tells him that she's starting to fall in love with him, and then, honey, it was like crickets from Steve. He was just like, okay. And I was like, oh my God, this poor girl, right? And I'm thinking, Noye, girl, you don't tell him that soon. You gotta still make him work for it just a little bit. You know what I mean? I hate to say that, but you know, it's just not, you know, some of that stuff still has to be kind of earned. And, you know, extreme attraction, as we all know, we've all been teenagers in our 20s and stuff. We can mistake that kind of thing for being love. And I do not think that she is in love with him yet, but I do think that her heart is so open that it's going to happen very, very soon for her. But here's the thing. Now, even though I do feel that she told him too early, I also think that if she would have waited a month, or if she would have waited 6 months, let's say, to tell him, I still think that his reaction would have been similar to that. I think it would have been kind of like, you know, not really reciprocating. And the reason I think that is because I'm just, after this episode, you know, because I've really tried to keep an open mind about his personality aside from the financial situation. And now I'm starting to build a little bit more of a stronger opinion about him. And I do think that he is basically a non-committal type. And the way that he reacted to what she said, considering that he has all this chemistry, it wasn't even like a, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen 2 people, or maybe you've been in a situation yourself where the other person says it first, says I love you first, you know, but the other person is not quite there yet, but they're still really, you know, they're still really like head over the heels for that person or whatever. You know, they just need a little bit time to catch up. With him, I felt like it was like, okay, well, it reminded me of the job situation. Well, let's just kind of talk about that later. When it comes to love, well, maybe we'll talk about that later. That's what I got from him. Now, I just don't think his reaction would have been that much different had she waited a more, let's say I would, in my opinion, at an appropriate time to tell him that she's starting to fall in love with him. I mean, it's like, Steve, just like, hold on. Okay, I get it. You don't want to hear that so soon, but she didn't say she's in love with you. She said she's starting to fall in love with you. And I mean, that's not quite the same thing. It means the feelings are getting there and stuff like that. I just got non-committal from him. That's just what I got. Now, you know, of course I want to be wrong. I've been trying to kind of reserve some of my opinion on Steve, but I don't know. I have a feeling that there's a reason he is the age he is. He travels the way he travels. His job status is the way it is. And that's because he just kind of, that whole, you know, free spirit thing, I think that also spills over into his personal relationships as well, not just job and traveling. So, oh, I felt so bad for Noye, but girl, you gotta, it's too late. You already told him. But, you know, let's see how they go from this point on. Maybe he'll start to feel it too. But, you know, from what I'm getting so far, I don't know if he's going to get there when he's going to get there, and now he almost looks like he's not going to get there, because sometimes when you tell somebody that you love them too soon, or that you're beginning, you're starting to feel those feelings of love too soon, what they feel is too soon, sometimes they never even get there, because now they're like, oh, hold on now, what you shouldn't be doing during a marriage process. But yeah, I'm not sure where Steve is going to go with this. So now it's time for Katina and Alyssa Wan, and they are together in the gym, and he's basically like bullying her into doing workout moves, and his behavior and his his manner of speaking became aggressive towards her, while they were training, and I'm like, hey, listen, I already spotted that that's who this guy is, the way he, just his whole body language and everything. But, we didn't know how soon we were going to see it. And Katina, girl, you better listen. I'm already skipping to decision day, right? Because in my head, I'm like, Katina, you've got to say no on decision day. You've just got to say no. There's red flags all over the place. Like, can you imagine just like sitting there having a good time with someone that you're really into, and in this case they're newlyweds, and then all of a sudden you're having a perfectly good fun time, and then somebody just starts getting like aggressive with the way that they're speaking towards you, and I was like, something. There's so many people on this season that I am just not feeling, and obviously Alyssa Wan is one of them. But he just, man, that can be scary for a woman. You know what I mean? Like the way he was just like, this is not a game. I'm not playing, and I want you to speak out, and I'm gonna challenge you. Like this kind of stuff is absolutely no 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 no. Next. So now we have Alyssa and Chris, and they are, surprise, surprise, paddleboarding together. But I guess that's just enough room for proper social distancing, it being the ocean and all. So, of course, she doesn't miss another opportunity to break him down, to roast his ass while she's on her paddleboard. And then basically tell him later on that, hey, because he apologizes to her for nothing. He has no reason to apologize to this woman. And she basically just tells him like, oh, yeah, well, it's just, the expert just basically gave me you kind of thing. It's like, woman, can you please just stop trying to find every opportunity to knock this man upside the head, with like a 2x4 of low self-esteem. It's terrible. It's so insulting. I mean, come on. I don't even know how much more I can cover her this episode. Oh. So now everybody's together, and the ladies are on the boat and the guys are on the shore, and the guys are talking about their fear of, Lindsay being too much, and Noye's declaration of beginning to fall in love, from Steve, and all this stuff. So then they go over to the ladies, and Lindsay is revealing to the ladies that she's actually starting to fall in love with Mark. And I'm like, oh God, here we go with another one falling in love. It's only been a few days, people. What? I mean, I know you got big hearts, but come on, can we just pump the brakes a little bit? So now Lindsay starts going into the whole, Alyssa Wan fight, and her and Katina are going back and forth, and Katina's trying to explain to Lindsay why certain words and certain things should not be used towards Alyssa Wan because of, historical things that have happened here in the United States, and, it just, she shouldn't have used certain things. That's what Katina's argument was. So then Katina just eventually was like, okay, I'm done with this. She walks off, and Alyssa goes with her, and Alyssa's like, just don't argue with her. Like, she's not worth it, kind of thing. And then Jasmina so eloquently goes in and calmly really explains more, I guess, what Katina wanted to say. Perhaps, I don't know if that's necessarily what Katina wanted to say, but Jasmina was explaining, why certain things can result in certain actions when you're dealing with certain altercations and dealing with a man of color and a white woman. So even on the after show later on, Keisha Knight Pulliam went into more depth, giving historical context and explaining the certain events that have happened and certain tensions that can still arise when it comes to altercations between black men and white women, and how it can result in men going to jail or maybe even being killed and things like that. So it was kind of a deep, heavy conversation. But I think coming from people of color who are feeling sort of attacked, and giving that like really explaining it. Usually on shows they just kind of gloss over that kind of stuff, so that's why, like, the historical context, I think that was kind of good for Keisha and Jasmina to go into that. So I don't know if Lindsay really got it or not. She didn't really seem like she totally got it, but hey, maybe it's a lesson. Maybe maybe she'll remember next time, hey, listen, maybe I want to handle myself X, Y, and Z. Listen, if she hadn't had 3 bottles of wine, I don't even think we would have had been having that conversation to begin with, to be perfectly honest. But I'm not going to excuse anyone's behavior because of alcohol. It just shouldn't have happened, basically. Like I said, I'm no Alyssa Wan cheerleader, but that's just, it was an unfortunate situation. So now everybody's back on the boat, and Lindsay is talking to Mark. She's recapping the whole incident between her and Katina, and she's feeling upset that she feels Katina was coming at her too strong, like basically, talking to her in a disrespectful way. But it's like, Lindsay, you started the whole damn thing to begin with, okay? So you can't step on somebody's toe and tell them how to react. I mean, that's just basically how it is. So anyway, Mark is basically like, in a nutshell, you gotta watch your mouth, right? Because he doesn't want to be fighting out here in these streets every 5 minutes because his wife doesn't know how to control her words. So now they're having some little game, and it's revealed that Steve has cheated before, and that Alyssa Wan, apparently his, really, really, really is down for a menage a trois, and if his wife is down, then he's down, but if my wife, I mean, he's just being so extra and just too much, and keeps going on, and not reading the room. Okay, Katina is clearly uncomfortable with this conversation, and she's like, yeah, but that's a pass, right? She just like has her fingers crossed because she's basically just trying to ignore red flags that had been blaring like neon signs in her face since the day that she met the guy. The lap dance, do we need to talk about that he did in front of her mother? So then Alyssa Wan goes full frat boy mode and decides to give us the details to this completely tumultuous situation that he was in with this woman, and then that he slept with, and then eventually slept with her mother. And you should have seen the looks on the faces of all the castmates on the boat, like, what? Like, because I know some of them are like trying to hang in there and be like, yeah, I know he seems like this, but he's really a good guy underneath. Listen, every time he comes up with more and more of these stories, you can tell like that little veneer of hope that they have for him is definitely being chipped away. And if you had the unfortunate displeasure of watching the after party afterwards, and you saw him go into all this detail, I mean, it was like a teenage boy just bragging to his friends about this. I mean, he went into all this detail and how he had to be the sex education teacher, and he had to instruct them, and it was so disgusting. It was absolutely gross. Katina, Katina, I know she was just like squirming in her seat trying to pretend like, oh, it's okay. But the girl's on national television. She's got the guy on the speakerphone because on the after party, he wasn't there in the studio. It was a question that was brought up by the host, and Katina started to answer like how she felt about him telling that story on the boat, during that game time. And then she gets him on speakerphone, and as he's on the speakerphone giving all the details, she's just like cringing in her seat. I mean, how humiliating it must be for her to be in this situation. So now we have Jasmina without Mike, I might add, and she lets us know that they had a really big fight basically because he accused her of cutting him off when he was asked if they had consummated their marriage. And when they replayed the film, no, she didn't cut him off, not even a little bit. It was calm. It was, it didn't happen. I think in his mind, he must have remembered it that way, but that is not what happened. And then on top of that, he's basically demanding an apology. And she's like, an apology? I didn't even cut you off. And I think after she said, you know what, I don't want to be with this guy anymore. Like, this is not the kind of marriage I want or whatever. I think she's done. Jasmina, she really, really strikes me as somebody that when she's done, she's done. So even if they like kind of make up from just that particular fight, I still think that in her heart, I think she's done. What do you guys think? You think she's still, I mean, we saw the previews for the next week. I mean, they exchanged a kiss or something like that. I don't feel like. So now we have Chris and Alyssa. He decides to go snorkeling and he tries to convince her to go. Of course she rejects him. I mean, like, what is he not getting? Like, she's like, I am here for my tan and my vacation. Why are you bothering me? Go play in the water, right? So he goes off snorkeling, but right before he goes, though, the camera crew, they are so wrong for this. So he has on his little swimming equipment. I never seen anything like what he was wearing. It wasn't exactly a life vest, or I don't know what it was, but anyway, he had his one little boob hanging out. Oh my God. It was just like the tooth angle when they zeroed in on his teeth, and then they have her talking about like how she's never seen him naked before, and like how basically she's saying like how turned off she is now that she sees him naked, and then you see him with that little boob, that little man boob hanging out. Oh my God, that was just, oh, that was wrong on so many levels. So she goes and she gets something to eat, and she gets on the phone with her mom, and her mom basically is just, her mother's just getting her together. I mean, there's no other way to say it, all right? Because she got so upset because her mother's telling her, you need to stop acting like this and just go along. And the way she was saying it, she was like, my mom just do it. Just do it, Alyssa. It was so funny the way she was like imitating her mom and stuff. But yeah, she was just so worked up that by the time he got out of the ocean, she had the camera crew send him away. He was like, damn, what do I do now? I was just in the water. I stayed away from you as far as I could, But, she's just a cruel little woman. That's all we can say. Just a cruel little thing she is. So now it's time for Steve and Noye to have kind of a heart-to-heart and kind of talk about the tension that's in the air, and that's basically that he doesn't feel the same way she does, or at least how she thinks she feels. So even if she's not all the way there, he's like nowhere near where she might kind of be near. Like, if she's at like, 3 or 4, like 10 be in love, let's say she's at 3 or 4, he's still like at a 0 right now. And that's what she senses, on top of the fact that he doesn't have a job. So she's trying to have babies, and she's trying to, have this long lasting life and build a home and all that stuff. And right now it's looking like Steve might not be the one, and quite frankly, I can't blame her for being worried. So now it's time for Mark's romantic dinner that he's planned for Lindsay. So they sit down, and Mark looks like he has some stuff on his mind, but Lindsay's just sitting there. You can see she's like just staring into his eyes, like she's really happy. And then Mark goes on to tell her that he wants to take things slow. Oh boy. When somebody says, I want to take things slow, that's basically just, that's like one foot out the door, right? And then he says he doesn't want to be too lovey-dovey because they're still trying to get to know each other. But here's the thing, Mark. You consummated your marriage. And on the after party, she let us know that not only had you consummated your marriage, you had consummated your marriage that morning, that afternoon, and apparently right before that dinner. So your argument could be so valid if you weren't doing that. See, the problem is like when you're acting like, there's all these issues, but we're still gonna have sex, that's where problems come in, because this is what happened with Paige and Chris, right? He was blowing like all this BS up her butt the whole time, and at the same time, he was still sleeping with her, so he was sending them mixed messages. So she's over here thinking to herself, oh, I'm falling in love with this guy. But now he's telling me he wants to slow down. And I'm sure she's been told a million times she's too much in a relationship. So she's thinking like, here we go. She probably in some part of her mind maybe had thought that she was going to drop at some point anyway, but she didn't seem that way. She seemed like she's going into it in a very positive way, fresh start and everything like that. But I know this is not the first time somebody's had to sit her down and be like, this is a little too much for me. So I would be 100% in his corner had he not had his hand in that cookie jar over and over and over again. Okay, Mark, your argument is dead with me. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm here for the ladies, okay? So, but this is just, he was just, I don't know. He should not have done that. And now she's like ready to absolutely explode. She's so upset, right? Because she's thinking to herself, oh, she just revealed on national television that she's fallen in love with this guy. And now he's retracting. So then she's like, all right, well, you know what? You need to stop clogging up these toilets. You need to start closing the door when you got to take a number 2. You need to stop with all this flatulence. You want me to be all demure? You better make some changes too. So that's where, that's what her dad said. That's where she'll come in with that, with the hatchet. she'll chop you in half. So, and his face was like, like he didn't know what to say when she said that. But that's a conversation that could have happened in a different way. But now she's feeling like, oh no, that's it. So they get back to the hotel room. And she's just absolutely livid. So yeah, we'll see next week what happens with them. But I feel like now that he's kind of pushed her away a little bit, I don't think she's gonna be able to get back to that place that she was at. Like, I feel like when he said that killed her world. That killed her world within like 20 seconds. So I don't think that's gonna happen. And I just think they're probably not a good match. I mean, I was really trying. I was holding out hope that maybe something could happen. But at this point, I'm convinced. I'm always changing my predictions, but right now, at this point, I'm seeing that these two are not gonna make it. It's just too much with the personalities, because he's a lot too. He is a lot too. But, her a lot can lead to people getting hurt. So, yeah, we'll see what's going to happen with those two next week. What do you guys think? Do you think that it was okay to still be intimate knowing that he had those feelings? Do you think he should have spoken to her about how he was feeling before, continuing to have sex with her? Because that just leads people on. So just leave your comments in the comment section below about that. I really want to know what you guys think about Mark and Lindsay. Now we conclude our episode with Alyssa Wan and Katina, and she enters the room and sees that he has all this honeymoon suite type stuff set up for her, and she's like really impressed or whatever. He gives her a foot massage and is telling her, his intentions, how he's going to be a one-woman type man, and he's going to do this and he's going to do that. Just the usual talking, right? So, one thing I've learned is that, you can do a lot of this, but it's your actions that really at the end of the day are what speak louder. So, Katina, I hope, with all hope in the world, that you have all your little notes written down with all your red flags, because rose petals and a foot massage are not going to make up for the way that he was speaking to you in the gym and the things that are yet to come we've seen in the clips. I am just not convinced that this guy is the right guy for her. So anyway, hopefully she's going to be all ready on decision day to be like, okay. So anyway, you guys, it's been good. Thanks for dropping by. I'll give you a call next week. All right. You let me know in the comment section, what you were thinking, what you thought about the review today. And I will see you then. Chippy Salacho. Stay safe.